Hello, class. We're on week 6 of our class, getting ready to finish up everything. We're on the downward end, and that can be exciting or that can be very stressful. I wanted to go over a couple things. We are on, let's get there. Week 6, and we are talking about narrative and solution-focused therapy. You guys will have a discussion board this week, but after the discussion board, the only other assignments due for this week is your discussion board. Otherwise, everything else is just on you to read and to learn about. I wanted to go to week 8 and talk a little bit about the capstone. So hopefully you found your famous family that you want to use. Now, week 8, again, we are not having any sort of discussion board. You guys will all receive full credit. We're going to have you do a case conceptualization for the capstone project. Now, if you haven't done a capstone, you have to submit it a specific way through TaskStream, okay? This is just a way for us to grade it. What we're wanting you to do is find a family for you to do your project on, a famous family. We've talked about all different kinds of people. Some people have mentioned the Kardashians or the Jacksons or maybe another famous family. And then you're going to look at the major, what is the major theoretical orientation you want to treat this family with. Now, for some of you, maybe it would be best to figure out the theory first as a way of helping you to like navigate. This is what I know about it. These are the techniques I really like. And maybe based on that, that will help you to better explain the theory and to better understand like what you're doing. Maybe having that kind of in your head first. It's the family obviously matters because you need to find problems in the family. However, it doesn't have to, you might want to figure out like, oh, I really like narrative therapy, let's just say. And, this family, their problems kind of fit a good model make it a good model for narrative therapy. So you're looking at how is the therapist with the people, what are techniques and interventions that you would use, what is research, how does this affect us with our biblical worldview, our biblical perspective right here. And then, of course, the case conceptualization. And this is a big part of the paper, right? This is the majority of the paper, your meat of your paper. Is when they say vignette, they're talking about the family that you're picking. So you're looking through that lens. What is the theoretical orientation? A therapeutic process and relationships in regards to this family, the interventions that you're wanting to use with this family, how that faith would be integrated with them, and also potentially diversity, cultural norms, things of that nature. How does socioeconomic status fit within this? Now, this is an APA paper, as all papers are APA papers, just so you know. If you have further questions about this, please don't hesitate to call or ask or email. I'd be more than happy to help you. Very briefly, I wanted to talk about solution focus and narrative therapy today. So I'm first going to go over, let's see, I'm going to pick the right. So when we're looking at solution therapy, solution focused, brief therapy, kind of more of the short term therapies, sometimes there's some myths about them. The myths are that the therapist proposes the solutions, that the therapist never talks about the problem, the solution-based therapists never talk about the past, and emotions are not discussed. All those things are very much untrue. These are some strengths of this form of therapy. They use a great support. They try to rally behind the person and find what's working well for them. And they want to encourage them to continue what's working well. So do they have positive family support? Do they have positive relationships? Is there a spirituality piece? Therapists ask subtle questions. And a lot of times in this form of therapy, they use a lot of scaling questions, like on a scale of 1 to 10, where are you at? So that way, too, they can measure progress at the end. Therapists help clients identify preferred solutions, um, often time-limited approach. And this is where people sometimes prefer this kind of method because it's not as long and drawn out. Right now, at one of the counseling centers I work at, we're working through a brief model, trying to really only have clients that only need so many sessions versus it being long-term therapy where there's ongoing, maybe more chronic mental health issues. It's kind of like, if I put it this way, it's like when you go to the doctor, if you can go to urgent care, you might be able to get a prescription and then you're able to get taken care of and then it's over, versus maybe someone who gets diagnosed with a chronic illness, they need to have ongoing care in order to make sure that they're safe. Whereas a cold, you might be able to go in, get something taken care of, and then you're done. So this is more of it on that short, it's on a shorter spectrum. It's not meant for, intense trauma, um, things that need ongoing treatment like substance abuse, things of that nature. I wanted to move forward. So we're wanting to continue what is working well for the client. Um, we want to be able to know that it's working better. Um, so we're trying to find what are the exceptions. So the example here is his ADHD is less of a problem in his math class. So why is math less of a problem? Um, let's research this and then figure out how we can maybe make this less of a problem in other courses, right? Exceptions provide clues. So when is this working for you? And then let's try to add how it's working for you in other aspects of your life. Um, and this is a way, again, because we're capitalized, like, this is working for you here, what's causing it to not work for you there? Those kinds of things. So what is the client's motivation? Visitors don't have a complaint, others have complaints against them, typically brought to therapy by other. Sometimes that can be a client's motivation. Complaints can identify the problem, accept therapy or someone else to be a source of change. And the customers can identify a problem and want to take action towards a solution. So this is what we're looking for. People that want to take action towards a solution. So positive goal descriptions emphasize what client is going to be doing and does not focus on the symptom reduction. Observable descriptions, clear specific behavioral indicators of desired change. So positive overall goals, increase periods of enjoyable activity, increase frequency of couples' emotional, intimate conversations, increase cooperation and so this would be symptom reducing. So we're wanting to fix the problem, not just the symptoms. If we treat just the symptom, we're not getting the root of the issue. Reduce depression, that's just a symptom. Reduce couple conflict. Okay, like that's great, but maybe if we do these other things that are positive, maybe that in itself would reduce those things, right? Increase cooperation in pro-social activities, reduce assignments. Again, it's on a positive note, right? That we're looking at these things versus a negative one. The goals must be meaningful to the client, interactional, situational, small steps, a clear role for the client, realistic and legal and ethical as always, right? And then the miracle solution type questions, like the miracle question can be, if you went to sleep tomorrow and woke up and had $1 million, how, going back to the miracle question, you go to bed, wake up, okay, if you were to wake up tomorrow and life was going to be exactly how you'd want it to be, what would it look like? If you had a crystal ball, a magic wand, and you could change one thing in your life, what would it be? If you had a time machine and you could go back in time, what would you do differently? Those are the things, and sometimes the answers to those questions can be very profound for a person. Very, very profound. Now, moving on to narrative therapy. I really like narrative therapy because it's all about changing the story. And a lot of people have a negative idea of what their life is about. They have pre-existing ideas of what their future is going to be like. And it's all maybe created in our head. So we're wanting to separate the person from the problem in this model. Um, we want them to not see themselves as the problem, whereas like there is a problem in their life and they're detached from it. Which, you know, kind of your story can be a huge thing with different cultures, and storytelling is big with different cultures. So depending on a client's ethnicity, this could be a good method for them because of the nature of this theory. Okay, let's see, moving right along. So phases in narrative therapy: meeting the person apart from the problem, listening for effects of dominance discourses, separating the person from the problem, identifying new ways to relate to the problem, and then strengths in their stories, right? You might actually have a person write out their story, which is really, really, really cool. When people experience problems, they tend to notice only events that fit with the problem narrative. Instead of replacing a problem story with a problem-free one, therapists add new layers to the problem-saturated descriptions. Helps client create more balanced, rich, and appreciative description of events. Because obviously, life's not going to be problem-free, but how we handle them and how we look at them can totally be changed, right? We're not going to have this perfect world where there's no problems whatsoever. So who are they aside from their problem? Try to get to know them. Who are they? What do they do? What do they like? What are they about aside from the problem? Optimism. Where's the hope? The therapist has that hope, holds on to that hope. The therapist and the client engage in a joint process of constructing meaning. The therapist does not rewrite the story clearly. It would be the client, right? So the therapist has a lot of curiosity, wanting to know the details of the story. So a case conceptualization for this one, for example. So you're wanting to change the outcome, right? We want the story in which the problem plays a leading role and the client plays a secondary role, generally that of a victim. Stories are subplots in which the problem-saturated story does not play out in its typical way, so that can be unexpected. Discourses that may directly inform the perception of a problem, the dominant culture and gender problems sometimes, and local and alternative discourses. So discourses that do not confirm the dominant discourse. These can be things that potentially come up that can be problematic. So overarching goal. So enact preferred realities and identities, increasing client sense of agency. So we want to externalize, right? We're separating the person from their problem, because a person can see themselves for who they are aside from maybe a situation. That might create for them to build some more confidence, self-awareness, maybe love themselves a little bit more, which is huge, right? The middle phase is to target the immediate symptoms and presenting problems, and of course the last phase is to target their personal identity, relational identity, and expanded community. Because if a person is looking at themselves through the lens of a problem, they are so clouded and their vision is so blinded to all that they can be. And for them to be able to take off those glasses and clean them and see themselves for who they are, and sure, there's mistakes there. There's things that they could do differently. There's things that but they're not those things. They have maybe been part of those things, but that doesn't make them who they are. That can be so freeing for a person. So, so freeing. Language is huge in narrative therapy as a way of, again, separating the person from the problem. We want them to see outside of themselves. So mapping can be a way to influence of the problem, inquiring about how the problem has affected the lives of the client. That might help you. Inquiring about how the client has affected the life of the problem. You know, these are the things that could be helpful. Negotiating an experience near definition, mapping the effects, evaluating the effects, and justifying the evaluation. So clients can get very overwhelmed, and just like some of our thinking is like all or nothing, right? So totalizing is thinking everything's bad as opposed to seeing what's going good right now. Um, and so this doesn't help a person if they're doing this. It causes maybe them to not feel very validated in what they're doing, and not really get to them changing and separating themselves from the problem. So here's some questions you may ask. When did you first notice depression influencing your life? Again, they're not depression. Depression is influencing their life, but they themselves are not depression. Assumptions. Presume the person is separate from the problem. So problems affect the person and the person affects the problem. Okay? It's a two-way relationship, right? And then problem deconstruction empowers the client to make conscious choices about which discourse they allow to affect their life. The therapist listens for gaps in the client's understanding and then asks them to fill in the details. Okay? So a lot of good listening, active listening there, paying attention to language, how people word things, how they tell their stories, in order to help them deconstruct that a bit and figure out what's going to be best used to help them separate themselves from their problems, and then have a different outcome by them figuring out how they want their story to be, right? Okay, so again, we're near the end. I'm going to have one more live lecture that will be next week. If you have capstone questions, please don't hesitate to reach out by email. My phone number is listed in the syllabus. You can send me a phone call or a text. Just make sure you tell me who you are. We're almost done, guys. Hang in there. No assignments due this week other than discussion boards, so maybe this might feel a little bit lighter. So if you can, start working on those capstones. Have a fantastic week. Thank you so much.